I call this meeting of the Fargo School Board to order. Approval of the agenda.
Adoption of the agenda with the addition of an HR added to the consent agenda.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Before we proceed, there is a special item on the agenda tonight, the public hearing, which is time certain, so we may have to cut into the middle of some conversations to make that happen. All right, moving forward, no one from the audience did sign up to address the board, but welcome to those of you who are joining us and welcome to those of you who are watching us on TV. Let's go ahead and start with staff reports. Dave.
Hello, and welcome back for the new school year. We're excited to get going. We're just doing our membership drive starting off now, so that'll be the big thing for the next month or so. And just some really good reviews from yesterday with Dave Weber. And probably even more, I've heard good news about the recognition of all the Teacher of the Year and the Pair of the Year and all those things. They were really happy to see who was nominated because a lot of people didn't even know who was nominated from their schools even. So I think that was a nice added touch to our back to school recognition stuff. So that's all I have.
Summer school report. Would you like to make the introductions, Dr. Schatz?
Actually, I think I'll ask Dr. Gross to do that. So he worked with the group putting the report together.
Thank you very much. In your packet, Memo 24 talks about our summer school program. And tonight we have Becky Folden, we have David Berkman, and Kathy Anderson, who are here to talk about all the different programs that we had going on in the Fargo Public Schools during the summer that addressed our students from elementary, middle school, and high school. There is a data packet that goes along with that, and each one of them will just kind of give you some of the highlights of their section. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the three of them, and I believe Becky is starting.
All right. Hello, I am Rebecca Folden. I am the principal at Claire Barton Hawthorne, and I am the elementary summer school director. I really take on two programs over the summer. The first one, if you're looking at page 4 in your packet, is Transition Summer School. Transition Summer School is a program that we run the 3 weeks in July. It is a teacher-referred program for students who are really kind of just struggling in the areas of reading and math. If you look on that page, there is a criteria that students must meet in order to qualify for summer school. This is funded through the state. It's directly tied to attendance, so after summer school is completed, we report the attendance back to the state. This year offered a little bit of a unique situation because 6 of our schools were closed for construction. And so we had to do a little thinking outside the box on how we could make sure that those students still received the services that they needed to over the summer. We did a lot of planning ahead of time. We did offer shuttle services from the closed schools to a school nearby that was holding summer school, and we really wanted to try and just brainstorm how we would make sure every kid was on the bus that needed to be on the bus. We had paraprofessionals riding the bus with those students, accounting for who got on the bus, who got off the bus. That way, if a parent said, well, my child should be there, we could see if they were on or off the bus. And we didn't lose a single one, so it was a great year. So you can see on page 5 the schools that were closed and where those students were shuttled to. For Transition Summer School, we serve students in the Fargo area. We did have some students that come to us over the summer that don't always live here during the school year. In order to come over the summer months, they must have one parent that has a Fargo address to qualify. So that is how we serve some. We had some from as far away as Arizona come through. So, and then if you look on page 6, you'll see the numbers that came through. We started with 768 students that were registered, and 643 actually attended the program. This is a free program for our families, and things come up over the summer, so this is a typical drop from what we have registered to what actually attend. The second program that I take on is the elementary enrichment program. This year, this was housed at Washington. Last year, it was housed at Claire Barton. We really tried to get it more centrally located for parents that We heard that that was kind of a request, but due to the construction, we had to move it to another site. So it was back at Washington this year. It is the 3 weeks in June, and this, if you look on page 8, we were able to offer 12 different courses, and a variety of them, from computer courses to language courses to arts courses. And so those are the different courses that we offered. There was 2 courses a day. There were 2 hours apiece, usually an 8 to 10 class and a 10 to 12 class. And then it was based on grade level. Those going into 2nd and 3rd grade were attending one session. Those going into 4th grade and 5th grade attended the 2nd session. And this year, we were up with numbers with that. We had 230 students register and 227 attend, which is up about 30 kids from last year. Any questions on our elementary programs?
How are the topics and the teachers chosen for the enrichment program? I mean, do teachers just pitch ideas and that's the classes you end up with, or?
We look at the programs from the previous year and the attendance of those. In December, we already start planning for summer school, so we send out something in the journey that asks for proposals for the school year. We look at what comes back. We try and give a variety. We do have high school and middle school teachers that come down to the elementary to teach as well in their specific course area that they have found a passion for. So it's a nice way to tie in our high school and middle school teachers as well.
I have a question in regard to the pilot programs.
Sure.
The 2, the resort and what my life could be. Could you talk about those a little bit more? And will there be any follow-up on that? Is
For
that
which
something
one?
that you would answer, or does that go to someone else?
Those aren't mine, so I'll let, I
All right, I'll wait
don't
on
know much
that.
about those, so I don't
Thank
have
you.
much, so yes.
I'll wait.
Anything else? All right, I will turn it over to David Berkman for the middle and high school.
Good evening. My name is David Berkman. I am a school year principal at Woodrow Wilson and also coordinate the Agassiz programs, helping coordinators with their various programs there. Would like to start off by thanking the school board again for that annual summer picnic that you all do for summer staff who are working. Lots of positive comments we hear from our building people who make it to that. So if you're wondering if it's well received or how received, lots of nice feedback from our end with that. Would like to congratulate Becky and Kathy for a couple of outstanding programs at the elementary and at the Trollwood level. Becky working with, she brushed over it, but with the HVAC going in, all the sites that were usually used were not available. So if you think of the scramble of we're gonna put together a program and the spaces aren't there, doing a very nice job with that. And Trollwood, of course, with Kathy, I was having a ton of great opportunity for students. Nicole Weiss, she is also with me tonight. She's the administrative assistant for summer school. And behind every very good program, there's an outstanding administrative assistant. So I was glad to have Nicole join me tonight. Last comment before I get into the report, thanking Dr. Gross and Dr. Schatz for their support of summer school. When you see the total composite numbers in terms of how many students are served, their leadership, board support, there's just a whole lot of opportunity that you see in the report. So it's definitely a program that we should be feeling very, very solid about as a district offering. Getting specifically to the secondary summer school report, I'm looking on page 9. We have a high school program for grades 9 through 12. These would be classes for credit. Continuing on the page, middle school, not classes for credit, but remedial. And then on page 10, Nicole and I also organized the athletic camps. And the Trollwood Performing Arts Schools, Kathy will be giving detailed information. What I would say from the high school for credit portion is the Trollwood Academy and the Main Stage Musical are opportunities for credit for students. And what I think is really, really an amazing opportunity is that the last bullet, our Fargo Public Schools students who've completed 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, they're able to take that opportunity free of charge, which is an amazing opportunity. Continuing on to page 11, I'm just going to highlight a couple of the pilots from the year. The resort was at Fargo South High School. It was an attempt to help 8th grade to 9th grade transition to a successful start to the school year. Life skills-based, hands-on learning-based, project-based, learning-based, involved counseling staff, involved teachers, and we had a good first year with it. Dr. Birch and his team have already started discussions about how to make it bigger and better even for next year. All right, continuing on to page 13, the middle school pilot. There was a Carl Ben Eielson pilot, 6th grade transitioning to 7th grade. The theme of their particular summer offering was what my life could be. And I think some of you, board and district administration, served on their big project at the end where they were doing job interviews and they were deciding how they were going to spend the money that they would earn in a potential occupation. I think the most powerful piece that the teachers would share is students were exposed to hands-on opportunities in the community. And if I'm a student who struggles in reading or is wonderful at reading, I'm good at math or struggle in math, the businesses are looking for those 21st century work skills of collaboration, cooperation, creativity, and communication. And as they did these site visits to various businesses in town, that's what the kids heard. We need you to be able to communicate with others, to work as a group. And some students who've not been real successful in school got excited about maybe school might be a struggle for me, but I need to get through it because I could do that job, and if I could make that much money, I can make a future. So the 6th grade teachers who did this pilot, very excited about how that had went. Last 2 pages I have, last page 14 is just our particular numbers for the year. Things remaining relatively static, lots of opportunity offered, and a lot of students taking advantage of it. Questions or clarification?
Jim?
I'm just curious on the athletic camps. You give the grade ranges for the different camps. Just out of curiosity, why would there be a difference from the north side to south to Davies in terms of the students that are going to have a camp opportunity?
Okay. The particulars of camps are run through the head coaches of the particular programs. Not all camps are the same length, have the same amount of time in a given day, or serve the same grade levels. They are similar in length, they serve similar grade levels, and have similar amounts of time, but they're not, it's not a set exact standard. It is driven by head coach and their vision for their program.
Okay.
And Todd Olson shares in those conversations as well.
Thank you.
I have a question. In the past, a lot of 9th graders will take bi-ed in the summer, so they don't need to take it. I think as a parent, I remember paying for that. Which, at the high school level, are the credit recovery courses for a fee, or are they free for students to participate? And then versus some of the electives versus the others?
All of the courses for credit at the high school are free, with the exception of driver's ed. Driver's ed has the behind-the-wheel fee. I believe it was $195 this past year. Otherwise, all electives, Phi-Ed, free of charge.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Anderson, the Executive Director at Trollwood, And I am excited to be here tonight to tell you that we had a great summer at Trollwood Performing Arts School. All of the numbers are in the report, the last few pages, the descriptions of our programs. But tonight, what I wanted to share with you is just a few quick data points, as well as some testimonials of how our programs impacted those that we served. We've seen steady growth in our youth programs over the past 5 years. For the 5th year running, we experienced an increase in our enrollment numbers. Currently, Trollwood offers 9 youth arts programs for students from ages 6 through graduated seniors, and when broken down on a per-program basis, we served 1,161 students and operated our programs at a 96% capacity. Many of the students that participate in our programs participate in more than one program. So individually, we serve 636 students, which is a 3% increase over our numbers from 2013. And this year, all totaled, our students received 68,000 hours of arts instruction in 107 learning opportunities at Trollwood Performing Arts School. One quote that David Weber shared with us yesterday really stood out to me as I was putting together my notes for tonight. It was the quote from Dr. Roland Barth stating, "The nature of the relationships of the adults that inhabit a school has more to do with the school's quality and character and with the accomplishments of the students than any other factor." Tonight, I wanted to take just a few minutes to share with you what some of our teachers and our students and our parents had to say about their experiences with Trollwood this summer, much of which relates back to what Mr. Weber shared with us yesterday. One of our ArtSpark parents said that her daughter showed amazing growth in confidence and increased creativity. The teachers were top-notch. She had great social interactions as she developed new friendships, and Trollwood provides a very supportive atmosphere and environment. One of our newest faculty members in our high school programs stated in his faculty survey, "The supportiveness of fellow students and teachers allows students the freedom to take risks and to grow." Amazing. He went on to say, Harry Wong in his book, The First Days of School, talks about how we must uncover knowledge rather than cover material. Trollwood was one of the most clear examples of uncovering knowledge that I've encountered. This is something to be proud of. A young autistic woman who was part of our Student at Risk program and participated in our high school program, Trollwood Academy, stated, "The thing that I will remember the most about my time at Trollwood this summer is my ability to be myself without being judged. I'm extremely excited and happy to finally be able to go to a place where I can be myself." When asked what she would tell her friends about the quality of our staff at Trollwood, she said, "They really are amazing and care for you and want what is best for you. Plus, they're really fun." And finally, this young woman stated that over the past 4 weeks, she can honestly say that she gained the ability to accept herself for who she is. The last words I wanted to share with you is from a parent. I came into work one day, it was after our big talent showcase we call Sun Celebration, happened on July 2nd. It features students from our middle and high school programs in June. And I opened my email to this letter. She said, "I cannot find adequate words to tell you how thankful that I am that we have Trollwood Performing Arts School. Last night at Sun Celebration, I witnessed not only my daughter's phenomenal growth, but also my very shy niece turn out to be one of the most confident and outgoing students in all of her class demonstrations. This is the first year at Trollwood for my niece, and she has turned into a different girl because of her experiences at Trollwood. Like I said, I can't put into words the differences I saw in her last night, but I can tell you, it made me cry. It was so beautiful to see her singing with pride and expression, dancing with grace and attitude, and taking the lead in all she did with such confidence. And my own daughter has grown immensely. She too discovered a whole new side to her. Trollwood has given her a place to be herself and to be around others who understand who she is, and it means the world to her and to us, to be able to experience all that she is finding and uncovering at Trollwood. It is something that we are very lucky to have in our community, and I just can't tell you how much I value what you are doing for my daughter, my niece, and many other children and youth. It does change their lives. There is no way that it can't change who they are and who they will be in their future. How can you put a price on that? You can't. And so I write this as a feeble attempt to tell you how much it means to us and to thank you for all of your hard work that goes into making it all happen. Thank you so much. Trollwood is a blessing, and a beacon of light leading our children to a richer, healthier, and more inspired life. And that's what Trollwood means to these people, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for making these opportunities available, not just at Trollwood, but for all the summer school opportunities that we have to offer. So thank you so much for that. Any questions?
Thank you, very, very nice. My question is more program design based. You know, we've really seen how you're able to make the programs grow numbers-wise and deal with downsizing of some budgets and, you know, we've heard from the kids themselves when we went to the production, the program you put on for us, how much they value it, and you always bring wonderful stories as to how they value it. I guess my question is, and you probably don't have this information on you tonight, but if you could send it to us in written form.
Sure.
The courses that are being offered for credit to high school kids, I'm interested in the faculty,
Oh, sure.
their qualifications and backgrounds, just to make sure that it's a educationally, I just realized that's a part I didn't really know much about. So if you could provide that after,
Sure.
send that to us, that'd be
You
great.
bet. You want, like, bios of each of our faculty
Sure,
members?
qualification, educate, you know, just so I have a handle. It's been so many years since I've been, just for background, that'd be helpful.
I have a question, Kathy. You went from, in 2009, from 559 experiences, I say that because they're not unduplicated,
Yeah.
to 1,161. What year did we transition from the North Side Trollwood Park to the now?
2009 was our first year in the new site.
Okay, okay. Tremendous growth. That's amazing. Any other questions for Kathy or David or Becky or Nicole? Go for it. Yep.
I just wanted to make comment about summer school in general and just overall activity within the district during the summer, and that is, you know, a lot of times people think we just shut down at school's end and we have graduation, everybody leaves, and then we come back tomorrow to start school, but we're a very busy district during the summer. We have so many activities going on, and not only this, you'll hear another report tonight about professional development and the things that go on with staff. So our schools are busy. They're not as busy during the regular school year, but they are very busy during the summer. Hardly a day goes by where there isn't something going on in all of our buildings. And so I just think that's really important for the public to know that our schools are open year-round and things are happening all the time. So great services that we provide for the community, as you've heard tonight. So thank you to the three leaders back there and to the administrative assistant who probably pulls it all together for them. But a lot of hard work behind the scenes, and they make it happen. And then, of course, all the people on the front lines doing it. So thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Schatz. I think if everybody thinks it's okay, instead of breaking up Dr. Gross's report, maybe we break for 5 minutes and reconvene at 6 o'clock so we can start at our time certain? I'm seeing nods, okay? We'll take a 5-minute break. reconvene here so we can start our 6 o'clock required meeting. Who would like to lead this one off? Our public hearing. Brock?
Madam President, members of the board, as is required by the 2011 Legislative Assembly and reaffirmed in 2013, there is a zero mill levy increase public hearing that has to be held in the event that any school district or I believe a taxing entity, but for our case, school district, has a mill levy percentage increase above zero based on the formula that is calculated by the county based on the law. And in essence, what happens is the law states that if you take the total dollars received last year and you are going to receive the exact same dollars in the following year, what would your mill levy need to be to make that happen? And in the event that that mill levy is more than the formula says, then you have to provide notice, as the notice provided for Fargo Public Schools this year. Although our mill levy has stayed exactly the same, it reflects a 2.58% increase in mills. And the reason for that is the valuation of each mill is greater. So any increased revenues that come as a result are purely based on valuation increase and the value of each individual mill. And the 139 general fund mills remains the same, and the 26.35 building fund mills remains the same, for a total mill levy of 165.35, which is exactly what we had last year. And so because of that increase in the formula, we are required to provide notice. We've done that to all property owners who have had their properties reevaluated, and we also placed the notice in paper as required by law, and we now are here to hear any testimony from citizens who choose to speak on behalf of this issue.
Thank you, Brock. Is there anybody that would like to address the board on this topic? As no one has chosen to address the board, I think, are we finished with this item?
Madam President, members of the board, yes, we are. It's simply an opportunity for public input, and if there is none, then we have met our obligation.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, heading back up the agenda here to 4C, Dr. Gross will be sharing a back-to-school report.
Thank you very much. Since tomorrow is our back to school with students, what we thought we would do is share with you some of the work and the preparation that our staff have been doing over the summer to get ready for the school year. Like you heard from the summer school report, numerous opportunities for our students to be involved here in the Fargo Public Schools, same way when it comes to professional development and curriculum writing. Attached to Memo 25, you will see a packet of some information about some major components of what we do over the summer. On page 2, what you will see is a listing of all of the summer curriculum writing projects that we do. When we talk about summer curriculum writing, we're talking about teachers getting together to do lessons, unit plans, assessments, talk about their curriculum maps, how they're going to assess their students over the course of the school year. And you can see this summer we had 119 staff members come together during multiple opportunities, and that equaled 1,679 hours of work. You can see from the chart that's on page 2 the variety of areas that we had curriculum writing done in, from science to English language learners, math, music, drama, social studies, counseling, world language, language arts, and social studies. And also the next column over, you can see that it was elementary, middle school, and high school. So teachers from a variety of areas coming together to do that work. How this is driven is either through our study committee and task forces, in which our teachers are members of over the course of the school year. They suggest work that should be done over the summer, or it also then comes from the district level as we talk about our curriculum review cycle and of work that we know needs to get accomplished over the summer. So that's one piece that's happening. A second piece is on page 3 and 4. This is just a list of all of the professional development opportunities that we sponsored as the Fargo Public Schools. You'll see there were 60 different opportunities that we put on. Now, this does not include courses at the university or other workshops and professional development opportunities that were created by other agencies. These are just ones that we put on here at the Fargo Public Schools. And as you look through that list of the class sizes, you'll notice there were 1,106 participants over the course of all of these opportunities. Now, that's not a unique number, so one person could have attended multiple events, and in the case that happens many times. But you can see the wide variety from technology to project-based learning to strategies that I can use in the elementary classroom and on, a wonderful array of opportunities for our staff that they can then apply this school year. And then finally on pages 5 and 6, just wanted to highlight 4 unique opportunities that we had in the Fargo Public Schools. They are unique because we partnered both with the West Fargo Public Schools and the Moorhead Public Schools to put these on in joint efforts. The first one on page 5 talks about Code Tech Camp, and that stood for Creating Opportunities for Digital Experiences. These were two-day technology camps for our middle school students. We held them at Carl Ben Eielson and at Discovery, but they were open to all middle school students here in the Fargo Public Schools and West Fargo and Moorhead. And you'll see on page 5 the number of students who attended those different events over the course of those 2 opportunities. Events like how do I code, how do I work with GIS systems, digital movies, digital photography, website design, allowed students to immerse themselves in technology. And at the same time, then we partnered with business men and women who came in and shared their expertise with the students so they could see some of these skills applied in the workforce around them. The second that I wanted to highlight was, it's a long title, Engaging 21st Century Learning Through Project-Based Learning. It's hard for me to say even. But what we did is we partnered with our 2 neighboring districts to put on 2 3-day workshops for our staff around project-based learning, where staff helped design large questions. What are those essential questions that we want to ask and then get answered? And then design the opportunities and put in place the opportunities, how kids would research, interview, survey, get that information, and then in the end, share that information with either a jury of their peers or outside experts. And from that activity, we had 77 teachers from the 3 different districts come together and be part of that. In addition to that, we put on a 3rd 3-day workshop in which we had 36 more Fargo Public Schools teachers come and be part of that training. So a large number have gone through that. And over the course of this school year, we will be giving opportunities for those staff members to come back together to talk about how did those projects go in your classroom, what did you learn, how could you make those better now and into the future. And we're also then going to put a digital catalog together of all of these projects so the teachers from Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo can all share those together. On the back of this packet on page 6, the 3rd activity I wanted to talk about was Summer Tech Camp. This is an enormous event that happens at Davies High School, in which 447 teachers from across our region came together. They were given the opportunity to select from, I think it's 310 different opportunities, 310 different workshop-related activities all around technology. And then as teachers rotated from session to session, they were able to create their own plan of study. This year we added something that was called Adventures, in which we partnered with some businesses, and teachers then went out into the community to see 21st century skills in action. So why am I teaching this? How will it be applied by my students? Our staff went out and had some of these visits and had those conversations with those businessmen and women. And then finally, the last piece on page 6 was the Education That Works. This was a wonderful opportunity that we've been working on together, where we brought all of the principals and district level individuals from those 3 districts together on 2 different days, June 11th or August 8th as a makeup day, in which we talked about what are those 21st century skills, what do we want students to know and be able to do, and then how are we going to measure that? And we really talked around a set of scoring criteria or rubrics that were developed over the course of last school year by members of those 3 different districts. We then shared those with our principals and gave them the opportunity to really dig into them, to get to know them better, so that as they go into the classrooms, they can give feedback to their staff around those 21st century skills. It was a great day in which the superintendents from all 3 districts spoke, and we heard wonderful feedback that we worked together collaboratively to share that same message. So just like summer school and the wonderful array of opportunities we give our students, I think you can see we've given our staff a wide array of professional development opportunities to prepare us and get ready for this school year.
Linda?
That sounds great. I have 2 quick questions. First, could you give me an example, the adventure sessions when the teachers go out to businesses and see something in action? Is there an example of what kind of business or what kind of conversation?
Some of the businesses were like RDO, Microsoft, the Jet Center, Sanford Health, DAC Tech, Byte Speed, just to name a few, in which individuals from those organizations agreed to speak to that small group to talk about 21st century skills and how they then would be applied in that work setting, so that the staff then could go back and talk to their students. This is why we're teaching this, and this is how you will apply it down the road.
And then the education that works, I think, isn't this the first time that administration from all 3 school districts has gotten together and to do an in-depth kind of development activity together?
The first time since I've been in the district that principals and district level administrators came together in mass. Now, we've done small things across our districts, but never bringing all of those administrators together.
I just want to give some credit too where it's due, and that's Jim Garden with the EDC, the Economic Development Corp. Last year, early in the year, Jim convened a meeting with the 3 superintendents, other staff members from each of the school districts, and asked how could the EDC help us in coordinating collaborative effort to get our businesses more involved with what we're doing in our schools, creating opportunities for teachers to visit businesses, creating opportunities for some of the things that you've heard about tonight. And so this here is the cumulative effect of that initial meeting, and this is just a start of where we're going. So Jim and his staff have been very instrumental in coordinating the meetings. We have our meetings at the EDC, and now we have splintered off into the working sessions, if you will, to make these things happen. Bob, as a matter of fact, today was over at West Fargo meeting, in a collaborative meeting on this very topic, and looking at how we can continue to build this. So it's just a start. This is just the beginning. And it's unprecedented. It's never really happened before at this level, with the 3 districts working collaboratively together, and not only the districts, but the businesses and the local entrepreneurs and the whole scene that's going on in the greater Fargo area. And so I just see this growing, and I'm particularly very excited about the student event that happened this summer, because, you know, that's where, you know, we really want to get to, and that is getting our students engaged in John's STEM activities and those types of things. And this is just the start of the spark, if you will, to get that going. And then the teachers engaged in the professional development is really where it's all happening. So this is what we talk about when we talk about 21st century skills and moving to the future. As we talk about strategic planning, where do we want to go? Well, these are the things that start to bubble at the bottom that eventually that's really going to broaden out and be what we do. So it's very exciting, and I want to just publicly thank Jim and his staff for assisting with the whole process and really being the spark to get it to happen. So thank you.
Thank you for the report.
Can I
go ahead,
ask a couple of questions? On the summer curriculum writing,
Mike.
is there a specific budget that's assigned to that?
Yes, typically we use our Title II dollars that are federal dollars for curriculum writing. So during the requests that teachers put together, Rachel and I and our team then review those to see which of those opportunities we can afford, which of those we can move forward with over the and summer.
So several, or most are accepted, or,
I would say most are accepted, some are modified slightly, that someone may request a larger number of either hours or writers, and we'll try to modify the request before we'll deny that.
do you assign a maximum number of hours that they can have then?
Many times it's based on the product that will be created and that's what we look at, and then help make that determination of what is the appropriate number of hours and the number of writers.
And then what hourly pay is assigned to that?
Contract, and
It's based on their experience, so we have a system in place, it's electronic, where they apply online, and then we send them back a response, and they fill in their years of experience and education level, so it's based on the sliding scale, but it averages about $28 an hour.
Okay. And this might be a monumental task, but has any thought ever been given to coordinating the curriculum writing with Moorhead and West Fargo? I know when I taught, there were some astounding earth science teachers in Fargo, and I picked their brains constantly, and they did the same. You know, if there were an opportunity to share among districts, I think that could be invaluable.
I would agree. Why reinvent the wheel? And I think this, taken this summer with the project-based learning, the cataloging of some of those curriculum writing experiences, and then posting them so that all teachers from all districts step in the right direction.
Thank you.
And I can just add to that, David, that what we see happening with our CTE project, the Career Tech Ed project, where we're creating this virtual CTE center with one director for the three districts involved, you're going to start seeing that happening across the districts where different curricular areas that are similar, you're going to see those teachers now collaborating in PLCs, those types of things, and you'll see more of that consistency in the curriculum. So that's also another program where you see that collaborative effort starting. So I see the possibility for all those things across the board eventually between the districts. So it's a great question that you pose, and something that I think we're starting to see happen.
Not only for our teaching staff, but our principals as well. The meeting that I was at in West Fargo is we were talking about a similar book study that's going to be conducted across all three of our districts, so that our principals have the opportunity for similar professional growth and conversations, so that a principal in Moorhead, Fargo, and West Fargo can have that similar foundation conversations.
And I would add on additionally that we started that at the teacher specialist level last winter into spring. West Fargo, Moorhead, and Fargo collaborated to write the 21st century learning standards. We unpacked those rubrics together, and then when the administrators came together, they worked on the documents that our teachers had actually produced to unpack them to every grade level, because they were benchmarked at the larger scale. So we have started that at a small scale.
This summer, who says teachers don't have all summer off? I have one question. With the collaboration between the different districts, for example, for the summer tech camp, how do you cost share that out as far as which district pays for what? Do teachers pay to participate in this? Do we pay them? Those are some of the questions that I have.
There is multiple ways that staff members may be somewhat compensated for their time. Sometimes it's a credit in which we will set that up where they can earn a credit. Sometimes it is a stipend for the day that they attend training, but we always give staff members the opportunity or the choice on which they would prefer. When it comes to some of the joint training, try to cost share that out so that it's equal our districts. And then we'll just continue to work on that together as our collaborative grows.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Gross and his team, and Dr. Agri and their team? Very good. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a lot of work. I'll let you introduce that, Dr. Schatz, and then.
Okay, I'll talk about it here with you. It's another set of things that we're doing, and as you can hear tonight, there's a lot going on. But really, this is what sets the tone for us during this school year, as far as what we call our operational plan. And tonight, we bring to you the first reading of that, which is what we are planning for this upcoming year. I'll go through some highlights, and then we'll open it to any questions you might have or any suggestions that you might have. We will bring this back to you after tonight for one final go through, and then once you approve it, this will be the work that we'll set forth. On page, well, let me go back and say this, that last year we changed this whole process to align it with the advanced ed standards, as you know. And so everything is aligned to those 5 standards. What we've done is under each standard where we have an item that will be part of our operational plan, we have indicated that, along with the indicator of how you would look at that that action piece and how we would evaluate that. So the indicators are at the back in the addendum of the document. So the first thing that under the first standard, purpose and direction, there's one item, but yet I think it's the biggest item in the whole operational plan, and that would be our strategic planning process for this year. As we've talked about, we'll be creating a steering committee, we'll be facilitating a broad-based community input process, and developing a new strategic plan for the school district. Currently, we're in the process of just gathering data, and as you know, we have an ad hoc committee developing questions for a survey that we're going to use to gather information from the community, from our students, from our staff, from all the different stakeholders that we have. And really what that is it's just the beginning stages of gathering information. Once we get to the point where we've had a public forum, which we're planning for in October, and we'll bring more information to you on that when we get everything finalized, and we gather all the information we need, then we'll go into that steering committee process, and that's when the real work begins. And so right now, you know, we have this ad hoc committee working on those questions, which are almost complete, and we'll get that out starting next week and start getting some feedback. That is just the very beginning in the process, and so don't want anybody to be too worried about what that is, because it's basic. But we'll be getting to the real meat of it later on. So that whole operational plan under purpose and direction is just one thing this year, and that is the strategic planning process, okay? As we go to page 4 and we look under governance and leadership, you'll see several other items. I'll just talk about a couple. Number 1, the first thing I want to talk about is create and carry out a plan to increase cultural competency within the staff of the Fargo Public Schools. We started that with an in-service with our administrators. This will be more administratively focused this year, broadened out into the whole staff next year. Really what it will be is creating some opportunities for us to explore our own cultural competency and to develop that even broader across all parts of our school district. So that'll be something we'll work on. The second thing is monitor, track, and participate in the legislative assembly and legislative process this year. We know that'll be very time consuming. Another big piece for particularly Brock and for our board, myself. And then you'll see further down, it says review and modify. There's 2 different pieces there, and then facilitate. The state has implemented new evaluation process for principals and for teachers. Districts have to select from 3 different models the type of evaluation system they'll use. Bob has already done that review in our district, and we will be looking at what it is that we'll be doing in the future, how we're implementing that, and that's what you see there when you see those 4 things. That'll be worked through the Human Resources Department and the Teaching and Learning Department, but we'll be implementing that process throughout this year so that it's in place and operational for next year. So all that work is going to be done this year. So I just wanted to point that out, that we're working on that. Question?
Before I lose track, and I'm just ignorant of this, has the state always provided ways in which principals should be evaluated? Is this something new?
I'm going to let Bob address that real quick for you, but it's new, this process.
Excuse me. It is new. There was a committee of teachers, principals, and other administrators across the state who worked on this criteria over the course of the last few school years. So there was teacher voice, principal voice in the process. They came up with a set of standards in which the evaluation system must meet. They then went out and reviewed different models that were there. And then that's why when Dr. Schatz talks about the 3 different models that you could choose from, they already meet those standards. You could, as a district, create your own as long as it met those standards. But what we've done this summer with bringing in teachers, principals, and a task force, we reviewed that data together and chose one of those models based on the works of Robert Marzano. We feel that it aligns very well with the advanced ed process. It also aligns very well with the long-range plan that we have for teaching and learning in our district. And the nice thing is that both teacher and principal will be based on the same research. So we'll have similar conversations through the principal evaluation process or the teacher evaluation process.
Okay. This came about with Kirsten Baszler taking over as superintendent for the schools in the state. So anyways, the good news for our district is that we've already been in one of the 3 models. We've been using the Danielson model. So the transition to the Marzano model really for our staff will not be as big a transition as for those other districts that have never done this type of evaluation. So it should be a fairly smooth transition for us. Okay, going back to the document, if we go on to the 3rd standard on page 5, teaching and assessing for learning. Big part here would be the research, design, development of a standard protocol for a multi-tier system of support, formerly called RTI. We're good at changing our names of things and acronyms. But what this is really important is that we are going to really spend a lot of time at the 6 through 12 level. We have not done that up to this point, as a lot of emphasis has been at the elementary level. In addition to this, we have put in place a dropout prevention and recovery facilitator, a person who's going to actually work on the issue of dropouts, and this is boots on the ground, a person who's actually working with those kids who are indicating to us that they are no longer wanting to be in the traditional setting of a high school, maybe go to Woodrow, maybe go on to get their GED, maybe decide to just leave the district. But this person will be working with actually tracking those students, working with those students and their families to do everything we can to keep them in school, to make sure that we find a path for them to finish their experience at the high school level. And so that's exciting. And they'll be working directly with that MTSS person, because part of keeping the dropout numbers low is to address the at-risk riskiness, if you will, when they're in school, and then what are the support systems and strategies that we need to use to assist those students. And so the MTSS position does that. So all these things connect. And then when you look further down, it says develop short and long-range plan to identify, monitor, and provide support for students at risk of dropping out of high school. They all work together. And so our new director of special education will be overseeing this, along with her coordinators and the other specialists that we have working in the K-5 level, tie in the 6-12, dropout prevention facilitator. And so this year is really the start of getting after that issue. So pretty excited about that. So this year we're going to spend a lot of time with the planning and implementation and figuring out how we need to move forward with this. Okay.
I have a question on the, I'll call it a caseworker for lack of, not knowing the term. How large of a caseload can they take on? What do you anticipate them working on initially?
Well, initially what's going to happen is the planning part of it, and that is working with the 3 traditional high schools and working with those principals to take a look, first of all, at the numbers. How many kids are at risk of dropping out? How many kids have actually dropped out? How many kids are somewhere in the system? And so once we determine that, then that'll determine exactly, how many kids we can handle. At this point, that's all going to be exploratory. I'm pretty confident that the one person can handle the transition of students from a traditional setting to an alternative setting, whatever that is. It's when we start to get out on the fringes of when they leave us and we don't know where they went and those types of things. But we will be working through all of that and putting our systems in place to do a better job of that.
Madam President, Dr. Schatz, I just can't begin to say how enthused I am about this effort for dropout prevention and going at it the way you are. I would suggest that we also add into this an element of of tracking our cost effectiveness so that we can qualify back to our legislative leaders the positive result that came with their new funding formula. Every kid is going to be $9,000 into our system to work with. And if we can show that transition and that shift to results, that we can take and pull these kids back in and apply the monies and deploy them back, it doesn't cost anybody anything. I just am so pleased we're doing this, because I think this will want to be one of the tangible, real tangible results of their shift in funding to student numbers.
Right.
More numbers, more money. Fewer dropouts, more money. And so this will be one we can comfortably keep investing in as the successes come our way and the revenues grow along with it.
Well, and it's really important for everybody to know that we have spent the last few years reorganizing, repositioning our district office and a lot of the things that we do to now actually do them. So I'm very excited about, entering my third year as superintendent to actually be able to say, now we're going to start doing something about it. And we have reallocated resources within as we've had different changes with how we position people, those types of things. And so I feel that we are going to be very effective in the use of the resources that we have, but we'll see as we move forward the effectiveness of the end game, and that is, are we able to start to take a hit on decreasing number of dropouts and those types of things. It's going to be a process, and it's not going to happen overnight, but we have now, we've had the kickoff, and I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, we'll continue on to page 6. Resources and support systems. A big part of the work we'll do this year, especially Jennifer Schulteis, the new principal at Ed Clapp. We will have to create and carry out a plan to hire certified, non-certified staff for the opening of Ed Clapp School. It'll be a lot like what I did when I opened Davies. She'll be working all year long to put those people into places and to create all the things that you need to create for a new school. And Rachel will be working closely with her on that. So that'll be a big part of the work they're doing. One that has been on the docket for a long time, finalize the revised middle school schedule recommendation, including staffing costs, changes to transportation, interventions, including costs associated with interventions, and curriculum writing. How many drafts, Bob? About 28 of that?
There are 29 drafts that we have on our shared site.
This has been something that was happening when I came on as superintendent. I said to Bob last year, we need to find closure to this and actually move forward if we're going to. And so last year they did come to an agreement on a model. This year they're going to work on making that happen. And so we're hoping that by the end of the year we're able to make it happen and be able to implement that new model. So, and all those of you who've been on the board know a lot of the work that's gone into that, and it's been going on for quite a while. So we hopefully can make that happen. And then the last one there, continue the implementation of the district's long-range facility plan. The most exciting thing about a plan is when you put it in action. And so we're seeing that happen with our long-range facility plan. You'll see us continue to complete things that we've started. I'll be coming to you in the future about looking for the future, being proactive on where we think the growth is going to be on the far south, what we should do with possible land acquisitions to support that down the road. And so all of that work will be the continuation of the long-range facility plan itself. And then the last, let's see, that was standard 4, and then we got one more. Whoops, John. Sorry.
Excuse me, Madam President and members of the board, while you're on this page, the analysis, the transportation study for the district, as I understand it, I believe we're about a year or so away from the 7-year contracts being before the board. Is that about right, Brock? 1 year or so?
Members of the board, John, we are entering the final year of each of those contracts, so they will be up for review and decision-making during this school year.
So my request of administration would be that we not only study the district's busing services, but that we also begin preparing an analysis of alternatives to contracted busing. So if ever and when we get to the point of reevaluating that 1-year contract, we're not at the last 11th hour, 11th minute final minute, trying to decide if that's even an option. So I'd like just some sense of alternatives to contracted busing.
Jim?
We briefly discussed this at planning, John, and I know you missed that day. This analysis is going to include if the district did its own, if we shopped it, if we negotiated it. So it's going to look at all the possibilities of how we transport students, right down to being in the busing business ourselves.
That's exactly what I'm hoping for. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, number 5, which would be the last standard. Using results for continuous improvement. Throughout this, what you're going to see is developing ways to better assess the reporting of those results from major initiatives. Really, if I was to summarize what you're seeing here, that's what we're saying. And I've been working with Bob and Rachel, and we've had discussions about how can we better disaggregate our data, how can we better report that data, and do all those things. And so Stephen DeRoe, who has been a software developer for us for a long time in our district, has now been put into a position to not only know where the data is and to be able to put it in the computer and figure it out, but to then analyze that data. And then what we're doing is we're creating a place where we can then, a dashboard, if you will, where we can go and click on and take and find that data, create a chart or a graph or whatever it is quickly so that we can then present or explain that data and compare that data. So it's an analysis of data that we've been missing that we're now going to start to take on. So that'll in of itself will be a big project too. So that is what we're up to this year. And we've got lots in the pipeline again.
Jim?
If I could get you to make one wordsmithing change on page 7, I had to do this at the state GAC meeting too. I believe the second bullet point, what you really are doing is aligning to the North Dakota state standards, as opposed to some nebulous thing called the Common Core standards, because the North Dakota state standards are unique to North Dakota.
Okay, I will take that to our teaching and learning group. Make that adjustment.
This is a first reading, so Dr. Schatz and his team are welcoming other board feedback. We expect to bring this back at the next meeting. How soon would you like to bring it
The
back?
next meeting, if we could, and then
Okay.
we'll have it in place, so.
Okay. And then this is essentially, for those of you, the newer the board members, this is their work plan for the year. It's pretty lofty, but then at the end of the year, they will give us a feedback report, a key indicator report, and what has been achieved or not. And that is the merit-based component for compensation for Dr. Schatz and his administrative team. So they take this report very seriously. A lot of work.
I think, too, just to sum it up for you, it's the work we're doing. It represents what we're doing, and what I'll be even more excited about is when we put a new strategic plan in place, then that will guide our operational plan. And up to this point, we had to create that to get us on track to where we're going. And as you have seen in everything we're doing, as we align to the advanced ed standards, we're bringing focus and consistency to everything we do, so that when you get documents, you can say, yes, that relates to that, and I know what that means. And it's not all over the place. So again, this is just the start to that, getting all of that in line.
Thank you. On to other staff reports. Dr. Schatz, did you have anything else you'd like to share with the board?
I sure can.
But you do.
It's a lot tonight, so we're in good shape. Well, we start school tomorrow, and we are tracking just as we anticipated with enrollments. We will know for sure tomorrow when people show up, and we will have a final report in the afternoon that Anne Marie and Betsy and I will work on, and then we'll distribute that to the media. But if you look at our RSP report that we've had done the last 2 years, the enrollment projections, we're actually tracking very closely to what they've projected. As a matter of fact, if you were to look at what they put down last year for the beginning of this year, we're probably going to be over 100 kids over what they projected. So that's the good news if you want to say that we're pretty close in our projections. We'll see who, how many students show up tomorrow, and we'll get to that final figure. We know for sure we're going to be more than we had last year. So we are growing, we continue to grow, and the planning that we're doing and being proactive is appropriate for the growth that we have. So I feel good about that. As you know, we had our school opener the other day with all of our staff, first time that we've ever brought all staff members in. Most of you had the opportunity to attend that, very well received. And again, another effort on our part for consistency in the same message across our district. We're ready to open, buildings are ready, HVAC systems are in, so everything's on time. We'll have a great day tomorrow. Let's see, what else did I want to share with you? The annual report that you have before you, this is the second version of this. Last year we started this. This is the second attempt this year. Filled full of information about our district. Anne Marie and her team have been working with all the different departments, have just done an excellent job of putting this together. This is our public document that is now online, available for anybody to look at, to see and learn a lot about our district. We'll continue to build this each year. We'll make adjustments where necessary. We'll add things where we think we need to add them. One thing I want to point out is the demographic information that's in the back. That is now 2 years old. So next year when we bring Ed Clapp on, we will have another demographic study done. So that'll be updated next year. So we'll have the most current neighborhood information about schools and the demographics that are involved. And so just want to thank Anne Marie and her team for putting together what we're going to be calling our annual report each year. And if you're looking for information about the district, you can find it here. So that's my report.
Thank you. Dr. Gross, anything else?
Nothing at this time.
Dr. Avery? Mr. Leeds? Ms. Campbell? Okay. Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded with the HR addendum included, I assume. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented with the HR addendum, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Consent agenda is approved. Business items, selection of architect for Operations Center, memo 29. Let's see who we have on that. Brock and Jeff. No? Brock, thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, you have before you memo 29, which is our recommendation for the selection of an architect for the Central Operations Center. As you recall, we asked for permission to go out for RFP and really try to get ahead of this project and understand that the Central Operations Center will be a project coming at us, and we wanted to have somebody on board with some information to help us get designing. We put a team together. We did Jim Free, Kevin Hagenes, and myself. We received 11 RFPs. We read through those and rated them appropriately, interviewed 7 architects. From those 7 architects, we ranked them again from the interviews, got down to a list of 3 finalists, and at that point I negotiated fees with those finalists and then bring you the recommendation that you see before you. Typically, we would bring this through the planning committee, but at the time of the last planning committee, we were still in the process of finalizing this. I did communicate with Jim Johnson as the chair of the planning committee, so he knew procedurally what we were doing and the steps that we were taking, so that he knew that we certainly were not circumventing planning. It was more a timing issue. So we bring that forward to you tonight for approval and hopefully for approval, and then we will proceed whatever the next steps are in this process, both with the city and with a design team to move forward.
Jim?
I'm going to make a motion that we authorize administration to enter into a contractual agreement with MBA for the design of the new Central Operations Center at a fee of 4.95%.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? John?
Madam President, members of the board, I'm just curious, 2 things. Brock, when you say a timing issue, what do you mean by a timing issue. Is this the city's processing of the decision-making they're doing, or the uncertainties and the uncertainties of what they're gonna do, or?
Members of the board, John, are you referring to a timing issue of bringing it to planning?
A timing issue of why we have to decide this through planning now, or accelerate it through the board, or decide now.
Okay, thank you for clarification. There's two pieces, really. One of them is we will hopefully soon start entering into negotiations with the city. We've got nothing formal in that regard from the city, but we certainly want to be in a position to know what it is that we believe it will cost to replace the facility that we have behind us, so that when we get into negotiations with the city, we do that armed with the knowledge that construction costs have gone up and we know what it would take to replace that facility. The second piece is, depending on the timeframes that will be put forth by the city, I think we want to be ready. I think we don't want to, it would be our recommendation that we don't want to wait to select an architect, wait to start design until after we have finalized that process. We want to be in front of that, because I believe that once this train gets on the tracks, the time frame will be pretty aggressive by the city, and I think we want to be prepared to respond accordingly. And heard of Dr. Schatz's mentality of being proactive. We want to be ready to act in that regard rather than respond when it's brought to us.
If I might, Madam President, and I'm not critical of that approach. I'm wishing the city were more on task, timing-wise, so that we weren't sitting here juggling like this and wondering, well, what about this or what about this? Because we don't know if we're going to even have this happen for sure. We don't know, I don't believe, for sure. We don't know if we'll be building new or remodeling options as we look for them. Do we?
I can try to answer that for you. This will happen. I have a sense that we will have to replace our facility, that with the new flood wall that's coming in downtown, we've been told that the building will be, they will take the building. And so, but we're still in that process of waiting to get a few more answers before we can start moving forward. The reason for the time that I've been told, the reason why it's taking so long for the appraisal and for everything else to fall into place is it's a federal project, you know, it's through the Corps. Everything has to be reviewed through the Corps, through the city process. And so what we thought was going to be a May report has turned into, an August report. And we're going to be meeting soon to start having those discussions. So we do know the timeline is going to be pretty aggressive. They're talking in March that they want to start on this flood wall, and that they might take part of the building away from us to start that project. So the timing on this is going to be rather aggressive, I think, once it starts. That's why having an architect in place, getting our plans in place to know what we're dealing with is really critical right now.
And finally, is this 4.95% of either approach, whether it's a remodel or a new construction?
Members of the board, John, yes, 4.95% of construction, whether that's remodel or new construction. And in that regard, I think you're right. We don't know if it's remodel or construction, but regardless, because of the nature of this facility and what it represents, it needs design work regardless of whether it's a remodel or a new construction. And also in that regard, Dr. Schatz and I have looked throughout the city for other commercial type properties that might meet our need, that are existing, that could be remodeled. And those types of facilities of this size are not common in Fargo. So although that is still on the docket as a possibility, existing facilities out there that would meet our needs are very few and far between, if available at all.
Linda?
And Brock, please remind us, what containment tools do you have in place when we're going through a project like this, where we've hired an architect on a percentage basis, and, you know, what incentives do they have not to just design the most expensive building because their fee, you know, what kind of practical cost containment things do we typically do in those situations?
Members of the board, Linda, the first part of that is we typically have a sense of what we are willing to invest, whether it's new construction, remodel, et cetera. So many times we will sit down with a design team and say, we are willing to spend X, so help us design what we need. The other side of that certainly is anytime we have capital construction projects, I really view this as we build a construction and design team. And part of that, and part of a process of selecting them, I think, is to understand, you know, does that design team have the same philosophy as us? We want our needs met, but we want them met in a very fiscally responsible manner, making sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck, and we're not doing things that are out of the ordinary or extraordinary from a cost perspective. So, you know, just from a matter of process, we really try to address those things on the front end and be very clear what we think our needs are, and what we're comfortable from an investment standpoint doing. So we don't have necessarily formal cost containment measures in place. It's really about working closely with that team to have them understand what's our appetite for investment, our expectations of them within that, and if their initial drafts of that come back and they seem higher than we expected, we send them back to the drawing table and say, that's just not something we're looking for, you know, go back and go to work on that. So it's much more informal, but it's really about building the right team, which starts with the selection process to know, do you have the same philosophy as we do when it comes to being good stewards of public funds, doing the most we can in the most economical way?
Brock, said that there aren't a lot of facilities available. What are we looking at? How many square feet?
Members of the board, David, the facility that sits right behind us is approximately 38,000 square feet. And it's really the dynamics of the building that are crucial in this. So within that facility sits our central kitchen, which has all of the items necessary for that central kitchen, from refrigeration, walk-in coolers, freezers, all of the hoods, all of that equipment that's necessary. The center section of that facility is the warehouse itself, so it's been called a warehouse, and it's the smallest portion of the square footage that sits behind us. Then we have all of our trades in the back third of the building, which have a carpentry shop that has all of the ventilation, et cetera, that's required in that. We have had a painting area, a painter on board that again has certain things necessary for them for mixing paints, for ventilation, things of that nature. We have 5 electricians on staff. We have a plumber on staff. So our trades area all have workstations specific to their trade. So we're really talking about a multifaceted operation center that houses not only our central kitchen and all its needs, but a traditional warehouse as well as complete trade shops for various trades. So that's what we would be looking for at a minimum to replace.
Jim?
Just two things to help add to, I think, the reality of this project. While we're certainly going to be looking at moving the operations center based upon the city's desire to change the flood wall, we're also going to be analyzing whether we could consolidate at the same time our print shop and, for lack of another word, our heavy equipment shop, which we currently lease over on 25th Street and 5th Avenue. So this design process is going to actually have two components to it, as I understood it from our last discussion. One, to basically move what's behind us here into a new facility, and two, if we want to consolidate so we no longer are leasing space and put all of our operational center stuff in one facility, what would that add to the cost? Obviously, that second component is not something the city is going to be involved in helping us with financially. But if we can free up long-term lease cost and really centralize all of our, what I'll call district operations into one location, it might make good economic sense. The other thing, for those of you that maybe don't follow this that carefully in the past or are new to the board, I am pretty sure this is the lowest architectural percentage that we've ever seen in a contract in the time I've been on the board. More typically, I would think we'd be seeing in the 6 to 6.5, 7% range. So pretty sharp pencil by MBA or pretty good negotiating by Brock, I don't know. And I'd like to think all future construction projects of the district will come in with this as the architectural fee, Brock.
The bar has been set.
My job contingent upon that. Just to, members of the board, just to add to a little bit of what Jim said, the lease space that we are using for our grounds crew as well as our print shop is an additional 14,000. When we put this RFP out, we did ask, this was a difficult process because we asked for a proposal on design of a facility anywhere from 38,000 to 52,000 square feet. So if you're on the other side of this, you're thinking, well, what do you want? Do you want A or do you want B? And the answer is yes. So that's another component, I think, David, to how big and what are we talking about. But all the second half, as Jim said, would be something to consider as that lease comes due. But it was addressed in the RFP as well, and which made this process much more difficult also.
John, and then Jennifer and Jeff? And do you want to interject right now? Okay, John.
Madam President Brock, I'm just curious, have we missed a step by, or is there a reason the first thing we're doing isn't hiring an appraiser? You know, or is our approach with the city going to be one where we're going to present them, this is our replacement cost for the project you're pushing us into? If we simply appraise the value of what we have now, that might not be the same discussion later when we know the replacement cost of this move, which we don't want because it's forced upon us. Help me understand that.
Members of the board, John, I'll take a part of that and I'll certainly let Dr. Schatz weigh in. One of the things we did, as you recall, we did some pre-design work with a different architecture firm, actually, to, in a way, address exactly what you're asking, John. We said, we worked with JLG Architects, and we said to them, the city has come to us and said, this is something that might be happening, and we need to find out, what does that mean to us? So we said to them, if you simply take this facility and you it somewhere else at today's prices, what does that mean to us? What does that look like? And so we've done some of that from a pure cost perspective to say, just replace it, nothing else. Tell us what that is. From an appraisal standpoint, I'll let Dr. Schatz address that specifically, but typically when the city or the federal government is involved in buyout programs, they're initiating that effort from a value and an appraisal standpoint, and I'll let Dr. Schatz, do you want to address that, or do you want me to speak on it?
I can try, or you can try.
Either way.
The appraisal that we'll get is for the facility and the land. Take everything out of the facility, don't look at anything else but the structure itself. I asked about a second appraisal and was told, and we'll be visiting with some other folks to confirm this, but since it is a federal project with federal monies and the Army Corps of Engineers, that the appraiser has to be approved by the Corps of Engineers. So we can't just go out and find any appraiser to go out and do an appraisal. That would be considered in the process. So if we were to ask for a second appraisal, which they would pay for, the timeline is long because there are not a whole lot of appraisers out there, and so we're looking at a 5 to 6 month period. So I asked that question and was told that if we got into that scenario, we could certainly do it, but then we would do something called quick take, which is the new term for eminent domain. So it's complicated at best. And the timelines are so tight with the city that we have to investigate, what does that really mean? If we want to have a second appraisal done, can we ask for that, and can the timeline be backed up? But again, we're still trying to figure those things out.
Jennifer?
So Jim commented on this, but I was sort of curious if you could elaborate on maybe where the other bids were landing and how far.
Members of the board, Jennifer, we had, as I said, 11 proposals. We interviewed 7 of those. The 7 proposals, the bookends, so the range of that was 4.9% to 7.5%. Some were a range because we asked for a range of a project, so they gave us a range of a cost, which I'm not surprised by. One of the reasons we also, we do RFPs or we do straight bids, and in an RFP, price is a important yet not primary component. So you need to find the best qualified, those that have all the pieces that you're looking for, and then once you get that, then you start to look at price and say, okay, well, is company A completely price themselves out compared to company B, and they're both qualified. So that was the range, 4.9 to 7.5, and saw a number of those in the 5.5 to 6.5 range, and exactly right that traditionally we've seen architecture fees higher than this, and there may be a number of reasons for that, but I think it was a well-vetted process and a good result for Fargo Public Schools.
Follow-up?
Sure, Jennifer.
What happens if we decide to go down the consolidation road within this contract? Is there cancellation fees? Are we bound to paying something, or do you only pay this percentage if you use the architectural services?
Members of the board, Jennifer, if I'm understanding your question, we only pay for for the services that get provided to us. So when you say consolidation, you mean consolidation of 2 facilities? For you, if there's a consolidation, as Jim has talked about, or an analysis of consolidation, it wouldn't be consolidating into one of the existing facilities. They don't fit. It would be consolidating 2 existing facilities into a different facility, because there isn't space, or without significant building of a property we don't own, actually, if we were going to consolidate to the other facility we're leasing. So there will be either new construction or remodel, regardless whether it's just this facility or more, and then we would pay the fee percentage based on total cost of construction of whatever the project is that we approve.
I have Jeff and then Rebecca. Okay, go ahead, Rebecca.
I just have a quick question. I'm wondering where MBA is based out of.
Members of the board, Rebecca, they are a Fargo-based firm. They are also the architect currently building Ed Clapp Elementary. And if you walk out our front door and across the street, about 100 more steps, you'll find them on Broadway.
Okay. We have a vote to do? Yes, we do. Any other discussion from the floor? Okay, very good. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All of those in favor of the motion to engage MBA, please vote by saying yes. Yes. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Dr. Schatz, would you have a comment?
Well, I just think it was said before, and I'll just reiterate it, that we aren't looking to move. This is because of the flood wall, and so I just want people out there to know that the Fargo Public Schools is not looking to go spend more money on more facilities and to build another facility. Believe me, if we didn't have to do this, I would be the happiest person in the room. So it's something that we have to deal with. It's complicated at best. We're doing our best to get our feet under it, and as we learn more, we will certainly keep you involved and keep you updated on what's happening. Okay.
Thank you. It's 7:05. Let's take a brief break. Is 5 minutes enough? Okay, we'll see you at 7:10. Okay, are you guys finished? Y'all done? All right. Let's move on to the next agenda item. We have some monitoring reports. The first one is an annual renewal or reaffirmation for our committee structure, or any changes can be recommended at this time. I would either entertain a motion or questions or suggestions. Jim?
I move we reaffirm GP 7 as it's currently written.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor of GP7 to be reaffirmed as presented, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Next items are 2 executive limitation reports. 7 board members did complete those. Thank you. Everyone did rate it in compliance, and so I think we'll take both of these together. So I would entertain a motion to open the discussion.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the executive limitations reports? Okay. That said, all those in favor of approving monitoring report EL1 and EL2, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. All right, board reports, committee liaison and correspondence reports. Should we start with Jim this time?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I'll give a planning committee report. We had our first meeting, and for those of you that are not on planning, our normal scheduled time for planning will be the first Friday of each month at 7:30. That being said, we are not planning at this point in time on having one the first Friday in September. We didn't get a sense of a need, and with school getting kicked off, the administration probably had plenty of things on their plate for the coming week anyway. We got an update on the operations center, much of which you just heard, as well as we had the discussion on the RFP for the architect. We also discussed some possible site locations in the far south side of Fargo for potential future building sites, most likely elementary building sites. And I think the administration is going to continue to research land acquisition opportunities that are west of I-29 and south of, obviously, where the Kennedy Elementary is now, because that's one of the fastest growing areas where new housing is going up at a pretty good clip. And I suspect they'll be bringing a recommendation back to planning to ultimately vet and then back to the board, probably sometime this fall still, regarding possible acquisition of property out there. We had a discussion of our priorities for the year. And at this time, we've identified 4. That doesn't necessarily mean if you're on planning, these are the only 4 things we're going to get to work on, because this board will send plenty of work to us, I'm sure. Number 1 priority will be the development of our long-range financial plan, which we will begin that process in earnest. And then as the strategic plan comes together later this year, we will have to knit the 2 together. But we really can start our work long before the strategic plan, because the financial components of revenue are the fixtures that we can work on, and then we'll tie it in with where we go with the strategic plan. Obviously, we'll be starting the budget cycle before we know it, even though it'll be September when we approve the operating budget for this year. About the same time that's getting approved, Brock and his team will be firing up to begin the budget cycle for the following school year. And hand in hand with that, one of the early tasks of planning from the budget perspective will be to try and really hone in on what are we going to have for available resources, so we can inform the negotiating team in time for them to sit down with the FEA team in terms of our fiscal abilities going forward from a staffing increase cost perspective. And then our 4th major area will be certainly tracking all legislative activity that will come back to have financial impacts on the district. The big one, of course, being the foundation aid, but there are several others that normally surface as they start getting together and throw bills on the wall to see what might actually stick. So, first Friday of every month. At this point in time, I don't know if we'll have a September meeting. It certainly isn't going to, I don't think, be the first Friday in September, but if we need one, we will certainly let everybody know. State GAC Committee met since we last were together, and I'm happy to tell you that both of Fargo's resolutions got unanimously endorsed, and so it is now going to the state conference, not as a recommendation from the Fargo School Board, but a recommendation from the State GAC Committee. And for those of you that may not remember, our two resolutions were to, number one, increase the amount of money for the school construction loan program, and number two, increase the state's commitment and funding to ELL students above and beyond what's currently in the state foundation aid formula. And usually if the GAC committee at the state level has recommended this, they normally fly through and will be endorsed by the state association too. And if that happens, then we don't necessarily have to worry about championing these through legislatively. That will become the responsibility of John Martinson and his team of lobbyists to craft it into the legislation that's going to be coming forward, both in the K-12 funding bill for ELL and in the school construction loan bill, which certainly will be increased, but we're actually going to advocate for a pretty significant increase based upon the discussion at the state GAC committee level. So I thought that was pretty good news. State GAC committee also decided to write two new resolutions. Actually, one's a modification of an old one, but it's really a rewrite. The first one was to take a vocal position of supporting the North Dakota state standards. We weren't on record as an association in any regards to them. And it's pretty clear that there is a vocal group, I don't know how large it is, that is actively engaging legislators right now to try and dismantle the North Dakota state standards, which, not saying that's a bad idea until we find out what the replacement standards would be, which they don't seem to even have a list of what those are going to be. So we will be putting forth from the State GAC Committee a resolution for the broader membership in the fall to support the North Dakota state standards and their implementation rollout. The second one is to address the state's responsibility to state employees, and in particular K-12 employees, and ask them to fiscally get involved with some of the surplus funds that they seem to have in Bismarck currently to shore up both TFFR and PERS, to lower the assessments that are coming back out to the districts sometime into the future. The current rules say that the funds have to get to 100% now, a solvency, before our assessments drop and employees' assessments drop. We're going to be recommending, although this is still a work in progress, I'm working with John Martinson on the wording, that they either make up the shortfall with a one-time allocation of state dollars to the plans, which would then allow us to roll back to the previous assessment levels that we were at 5 years ago, I believe, which would be a significant savings for the district and a significant savings for our employees as well. Or to change the threshold of when the rollback occurs to something less than 100%. Most defined benefit pension plans, which these are in the world of pensions, if they're 65 to 70% fully funded, that's a pretty remarkable defined benefit plan. So this having a threshold of 100% really means 40 years before we'll see a drop in what we're having to pay for these. And the third possibility is to look at modifications of these plans, grandfathering all the current employees, but perhaps a new system of retirement for new hires, which seems to have had some legislative support in the past, although that one is going to be, I think, a very difficult one not only for the legislature to get their arms around, but also our public employees. So we're going to try and craft a resolution that we think can protect the school districts and its employees going forward, and hopefully get us off this effectively 26% of payroll that we are funding currently into the retirement system. So that's my report from State GAC.
Jim, do you know what the current percent of solvency is?
I believe we're hovering right around the 62% mark, the last report I saw, and supposedly has improved. But there are two factors that are involved in that. One is the fund and its rate of return. The other is the attrition rate into retirement. We have many employees in our district, and I'm sure statewide, that are actually eligible for the state retirement plan right now, but are continuing to teach. So if we see an acceleration, people are actually worried about this acceleration, in particular in western North Dakota right now. With the high cost of living out there, there are a lot of long tenured staff people that are thinking, maybe it's time for me to retire and sell my property in Williston and move to a better climate to retire into. So if the rate of retirement accelerates past what they've projected, then that will drop off again the solvency rate. So, and that's a moving number daily with the market right now.
Thank you. The fund managers would have been tickled pink with 90% solvency, but now there's bills out there asking for 100, so.
That's the new legislative mandate
Right.
on us, so.
Right.
And 90% was an incredibly high number to get to, so 100% is just, none of us will be alive when it hits that number, would be my guess. Maybe Anne Marie, I'm sorry.
Are you all done, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, John.
Madam President, members of the board, I attended my first meeting with the Native, as a commissioner on the Native American Council, and we had a retreat, an all-afternoon retreat, which was really, really interesting. And I'm very much looking forward to that appointment unfolding. I thank you for it, Madam President. The GAC committee had its first meeting. We'll be meeting the third Wednesdays of the month at 7:30. We reviewed the legislative priorities just to update new members of where we had finished the last year off of priorities going into the legislature and that we're going on to Bismarck. We set our goals and talked quite a bit about what the legislature going on, how we'll approach the legislative assembly, how we'll approach candidates as well as elected officials, because we have both. And some of them, the timing of some of those is important with pre-election or post-election, and then the session starting in January. Our desire to cooperate with West Fargo remains. Our superintendent will be reaching out to David and the FEA folks to start having some additional levels of communication with them relative to legislative issues. And we touched a little bit on the national relationship with our congressional delegations, being as we're not likely to be involved with FRN, Federal Relations Network. We're going to be unfolding more active efforts to connect with our congressional folks locally and involve them locally. So first Wednesday of every month at 7:30.
Rebecca.
All right. On August 21st, I went to Discovery to their 6th grade Eagles Camp, which was very fun. I sent some pictures through to Anne Marie, so hopefully you'll be able to use those. And I followed the Apollo team. There are 3 teams, so I followed the Apollo team around for about an hour and a half, and we worked on important things like how to open your lock combination. And I was reminded about being in high school and being pretty nervous about making sure that I could get that combination open. So anyway, that was pretty fun. And visiting with the principals there. And I was at Kennedy. They had a teacher-staff meeting on August 22nd on Friday. And I arrived after that meeting, but I visited with the principal, Jerry Hansen, and a couple of their PTA folks. So I'll make plans to head back there. My children go to Claire Barton Hawthorne, so I went into that school last night for our back-to-school night, and I just want to say it looks awesome, the HVAC. They're pretty. Those white systems are very, very pretty, actually. And even though it was a very cool day, the air was just so nice and fresh in the building. And I heard comments from students and teachers and parents about just how refreshing it was to be in the building. And the bad memories of last year when kids would drop off their items and all they wanted to do was leave the school. And probably didn't even want to come back for a week because it was so hot. So that was very nice. And I am looking forward to September 18th when I think there will be some other board members also serving ice cream for CBH. So Dr. Schatz gave a good report on the ad hoc committee. I don't think I need to add anything else on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
So I was able to speak with Megan Kaiser, the principal over at Lincoln, last week, and we had a brief conversation on the phone. She's going to be sending me an email with some staff meeting agendas so that I can have the opportunity. She invited me, I should say, into the school to introduce myself as their liaison for the year. And today I went over to CBE and met with Brad Larson and introduced myself at the beginning of their staff meeting to 80-plus people. So, so that was fun. And I do have to say, the majority of the comments that I heard in getting to speak with a few of the individuals one-on-one were all very positive about yesterday. Sure. So, and in the future, they have welcomed me into visiting the classrooms during the day, and I did get a tour of the school and a little bit about the history. So it was nice. It's fun.
David?
I really don't have much to report. My last 2.5 weeks have been kind of messed up, so I haven't been up to par.
Understandable. Linda?
Thank you. In preparations for negotiations, I have been gathering information from administration just to kind of get some background and hear what some of their concerns are. So I suppose sometime in October, I'd like to get the committee together to be briefed by administration and the cabinet. So whenever you think it would be a good fit for your schedule. October-ish is probably good. Community development meeting at City Hall is coming up on Thursday. I've been kind of lining up meetings with my principals, but I was going to wait till after school started till I figured they didn't want me underfoot quite yet. And lastly, I have an apology for John Strand and your committee. Out of habit, it showed up again. Nobody said a word, and I just yapped my way through the whole meeting. So thank you for being so welcoming at Government Affairs Committee. I'll be sleeping in from now on.
My farming anecdotes.
It's like,
That's when she remembered she didn't want to be there.
As I was double checking things like, I'm not on that committee anymore, so thank you.
I love it. Realize that. Go ahead, sorry, Donna.
No, that's okay. Communications is meeting this Thursday at noon in the video conference center down here. For those of you who are new and maybe don't know where it is, it's just around the corner here on this floor. And we will be, among other things, talking about our goals and tasks for this year. So if there's anybody who isn't on communications, who has something in their bonnet that they think communications should discuss as a possible activity for this year, please let me know before Thursday. I was at both the Claire Barton Hawthorne and the Centennial School's first staff meetings on Friday morning. And interestingly enough, for those of you who are on the board for a long time and know that a few years ago we restructured the pairing of the schools, mostly because I couldn't get from Longfellow to Kennedy in one day at one time. I was able to get and be on time for my 2 invitations from Hawthorne to Centennial. So that was kind of fun. Really nice, enthusiastic staff and very welcoming again. I also attended the taco lunch at North, which is
Ufta taco?
the Ufta taco lunch at North, which was really fun. So if you couldn't make it this year, Andy usually invites all the board members every year and stuff. So it's a nice way to meet the staff at a school when you're not necessarily the liaison there also. What else? The Board of Health, which is my outside assignment, is meeting in September. We had a long hiatus. We only meet every 2 months, and the last one was canceled, so it's kind of long. Haven't had a meeting. And I also wanted to say that the staff opener yesterday was really good, and I heard a lot of varied feedback from folks at all levels of the staff, and all of it was positive. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you for those of you that were able to attend yesterday's back-to-school opener. I heard very many positive comments as well, so thank you to Jeff and his team. And I know Anne Marie didn't sleep a lot the night before, and she was all radio packed up, but earphones on, coordinating everything, so everything seemed to go off without a hitch, so thank you. As far as events go, Rebecca mentioned the ice cream social, which really is a lot of fun, but you do get a little bit sticky. So they'll give you gloves, but it's a fun night. The NDSBA convention, we did put the RSVP due to Anne Marie by September 5th. She is starting to get a little nervous because only 2 board members have RSVP'd at this point. This is very timely for not only for reservation purposes, but we also assign our delegates at our next board meeting. So we need to determine who's going to be there, and I believe we can have 4 delegates with 5 with 1 alternate. So whatever the case, those are, the delegates can go in and vote to the assembly. So we need to know for that reason. Also for newer board members, typically the night before, we have a little bit of a board dinner. So Anne Marie's going to need to know which nights you're there. Now, is this during duck season opener? Oh, okay. So we're not quite sure when Jim will be there, but I'm sure he'll fill us in. But the sooner you can get those into Anne Marie, I'm sure she would appreciate it. And then she'll come up with a little grid, and then we can also coordinate rides. So it seems to work well.
We usually do that board dinner on that Thursday night.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But if everybody will be there on Wednesday night too, we always can coordinate something for everybody to dine together, but we usually do that group one on Thursday evening.
Thank you for clarification. I'll make that amendment. Committee meetings, most people had mentioned when their times are going to be. Thank you for that. Under my liaison reports, the next governance meeting is Tuesday, September 2nd, the day after Labor Day. I just realized. I did visit South's back-to-school all-staff meeting and had a lot of fun, had some lunch with them. My Fargo Youth Initiative outside assignment hasn't met, well, I should say they've met, they've had a retreat, but I wasn't invited because I'm a big kid and I wasn't part of that yet. So, also, on a side note, another way that you can connect with your liaison schools is to request to get on their PTA newsletter list. And that's really fun because then you get to learn about a lot of the events that go on in the school. So you could certainly contact your PTA president for that. I believe that Betsy sent out that list earlier. That's all for my report. Let's see here. The next meeting, regular board meeting is September 9th. And for debriefing, I have a couple comments. Does anybody want to start on debriefing? Linda?
I was just going to make a note about the microphones. Being an old recording studio nerd, you have to be close, because if they're way back here, we're going to get feedback. It's not going to, so about a hand width. So bring them towards you if you're, and that helps with broadcasting too.
Good. I have, as far as getting my attention, as far as speaking goes, it's my job to make sure that we speak in turn and have the floor at appropriate times. So in order to get my attention, there's no reason to say, Robin, just wait, give me a nod or kind of do one of these. And as soon as I give you a nod, you can know that you're on the list and you will be called upon. So just want to make everybody aware of that's the best way to get my attention. Any further debriefing items? Okay, thank you. This meeting of the Fargo Board of Education is adjourned.